Welcome into CBS News 24/7. I'm Elizabeth Cook. An unusual display on the White House lawn, how the Trump administration is using these lawn signs to tout immigration arrests in the face of mounting legal challenges. And we're going to take a closer look at President Trump's approval rating, almost 100 days into his second term. Plus, public transit brought to a standstill, flights delayed, ATMs not working, and it's a tennis open in the dark. What could be behind the cause of a massive power outage impacting millions across 2 European countries? And 2 boaters trying to break speed record on the water end up flying through the air. Plus, first, we start at the White House. President Donald Trump will mark his first 100 days in office with a rally in Michigan tomorrow and a message. Promises made, promises kept. But new CBS News polling suggests support for the president and those promises is slipping. Let's show you the contrast. Back in February, Americans gave him a 53% approval rating. Now that number is down to 45%. More Americans polled disapprove of the president's immigration policies. 51% disapprove, 49% approve. But more targeted questions specific to deportations and the numbers improved to 56% approval. That said, a large majority say the mistaken detentions and deportations of U.S. citizens is unacceptable. But the White House is doubling down on the justification for those deportations, going as far as to say putting up posters of arrested undocumented migrants on the White House North Lawn there. So let's bring in CBS News Chief White House correspondent Nancy Cordes. She is there. Nancy, we can see those posters behind you. Why did the White House choose that spot? Is it because they knew that all the cameras were going to be there and they were going to get plenty of airtime?
That's right. All the networks, all the cable channels, we're all lined up in a row here on the North Lawn of the White House. And so the posters are lined up right behind us. And you can see each of them has a mugshot. It says arrested, and then it lists the crime that the unauthorized migrant was arrested for in the first 100 days of the Trump presidency. Violent crimes like sexual assault on a child, murder, rape. And the White House is making the case that President Trump is making the country safer by getting these people off the streets, Liz.
And Nancy, President Trump is set to sign more executive orders on immigration today. What do we know about those?
Right. So he's got a very busy day because he's going to be greeting the Super Bowl champion Eagles to the White House in the afternoon, then signing executive orders on immigration right after that. And you know, the administration is going to be touting their first 100 days accomplishments all week long, but it is no accident that they are starting out today with this big push on immigration. We had a briefing with the president's so-called border czar, Tom Homan, first thing this morning at 8:30, where he made the case that that the administration has effectively sealed off the border, and that's something you're going to hear echoed by the president himself this afternoon in the Oval Office.
And Nancy, in a sit-down interview with the Atlantic magazine, President Trump said, quote, "I run the country, I won the world." That interview was published today. What else can you tell us about what the president had to say in that interview?
Right. It's a pretty astounding statement, right? The president of the United States. Yes, the U.S. is often seen as the world's policeman, the most powerful country in the world. But for the president of the United States to come right out and say, "I run the world," that is a pretty bold claim. And it came in the larger context of the president telling these reporters from the Atlantic that he feels much more comfortable with the scope of his power in his second term, that he had people around him in his first term that he described in that interview as crooked, said he had to deal with that, and he was just in survival mode as a first-time politician. This time around, he said he's got people coming to him wanting to make deals, and that he feels clearly that he has a very expansive view of presidential power and that he isn't afraid to use it.
All right, Nancy Cordes live for us in front of the White House there. Thanks so much, Nancy.
You're welcome.
Well, hearing today in the battle between the Trump administration and Harvard, the school filed a lawsuit after the Trump administration froze more than $2 billion of federal funding. Now, the university previously rejected the administration's demands for changes to its admissions, hiring, and discipline policies to be in line with President Trump's ideals. Let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, could this lawsuit set a precedent for other universities that oppose the administration's policies? Harvard's not the only one that gets federal funding.
That's right, and we've seen a lot of different colleges, whether it's Columbia University or others, get hit with kind of this dangling thread of either change your ways and kind of oblige by what we believe you should be doing, whether it's on research, on DEI, and what the Trump administration definition of that is versus other definitions. But there's also this conversation to be had too of how hard can Harvard fight back in this interim period. At the hearing today, the judge set a scheduling an initial hearing in this for arguments later in July. So at least it appears that this funding freeze is going to be in place till then. Very unlikely, just given that at least the pace right now of this case, that they will have their funding fully restored by the fall. But again, that's a lot of money that goes towards everything from future research that they're doing in the future to right now. And it really is a cost-benefit analysis that we've seen with these law firms as well, in which you have to decide whether to kind of go along with what the Trump administration is doing or kind of take the longer play here. And certainly this Harvard case is certainly the biggest and most important so far of the Trump administration using the threat of cutting off money entirely over institutions that typically have never been under attack like this.
And Jake, the Trump administration is facing another deadline this week in the deportation case of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Here's Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt this morning addressing the case.
Just to be clear, have there been any negotiations between the U.S. and El Salvador over his release or facilitating his release?
I will tell you what the president of El Salvador told all of you in the Oval Office. El Salvador does not intend to smuggle a designated foreign terrorist back into the United States. He is an El Salvadorian national. That is his home country. That is where he belongs. And the administration intends to comply with what President Bukele said of El Salvador. He does not intend to send that individual back.
So that's a no. There's been no talks.
What I have told you is that the president of El Salvador has made this quite clear.
Okay, Jake, so what's this week's deadline? And is this an indication that the DOJ is not going to comply here?
Well, both sides in this case, both the Department of Justice and attorneys for Abrego Garcia, agreed last week on Wednesday to postpone a deadline for discovery or expedited fact-finding in this case. What is really at stake here is whether the Department of Justice cooperates on having additional members of the Department of Homeland Security, State Department, and others comply for depositions, and whether, after a judge in this case issued a rather scathing order, the Department of Justice complies by answering questions sought by Abrego Garcia's attorneys. Those, at least as of last week, were not answered at all on Wednesday, and that's why the judge gave them extra time, very likely. But more to come in this case on that specifically, but there really has been no change from the White House or Trump administration on bringing him back, and we see them kind of parse words there, as even though the Supreme Court ordered the administration to bring him back as if he had been wrongly removed from the United States, we saw Caroline Leavitt say right there that is just not going to happen because they say that they have no power to compel his return. However, at least the judge in this case and other judges around the country have ordered there has to be some kind of production of these people for due process at one point or another.
All right, Jake Rosen, thanks so much. Russian President Vladimir Putin has declared a 3-day ceasefire in the war with Ukraine to begin May 7th to coincide with the 80th anniversary of the Soviet Union's victory in World War II. Now, this comes after President Trump held private talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at the funeral for Pope Francis. The BBC's John Donison has the very latest.
The Kremlin has said it's prepared to offer a 3-day unilateral ceasefire starting on May the 8th and running through to the 11th. It says it's doing this because of humanitarian concerns, and it says that it is to coincide with what Russia calls Victory Day celebrations when they mark the end of the Second World War. Now, let's wait and see if it happens, but you can imagine there's quite a lot of skepticism here in Ukraine. The foreign minister has just issued a statement saying, why wait until May the 8th, and why hasn't Russia gone along with the plan to have a 30-day complete ceasefire, something the Americans have been proposing for weeks now. Why are they suddenly announcing this now? The foreign minister called it a parade and said that what Ukraine is still wanting is a 30-day unconditional ceasefire from air, land and sea, and only when that is established are they prepared to get into all the talks about territory and also about Ukraine's future security. So look, you know, any announcement of a pause in the fighting is good, but let's wait and see if it happens, and let's wait and see if it holds, because of course we had that short 30-hour ceasefire announced by Russia over the Easter holiday weekend, and that was a ceasefire really in all but name.
John, thank you so much. And for the first time, North Korea confirmed that it sent troops to fight for Russia. According to the country's state media, its troops helped Moscow push Ukraine out of Russia's Kursk border region. Coming up, a hit and run involving a speedboat and a ferry off the coast of Florida. One person killed, many others severely hurt. We're on the ground in Clearwater when we come back. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Our monitor is taking us now down to Clearwater, Florida, where we are expecting an update soon on a deadly hit-and-run boat crash that happened last night. The U.S. Coast Guard says one person was killed, 12 other people were sent to the hospital after a boat crashed into a ferry and then left the scene. CBS affiliate WTSP is on top of this story for us. Let's listen to their coverage from just moments ago.
We are waiting for a statement from Florida Fish and Wildlife officials who told me a few hours ago they were hoping to have something out by noon. So we were hoping to get the latest information, and I can tell you as soon as we have that, we will pass it along to you. But we did get new information from the Coast Guard this morning telling us that there were 12 people that were sent to local hospitals as a result of this accident. We do know from last night that 2 of those people were trauma alerts, and at Bayfront Hospital, there are 2 people that are in stable condition this morning. And we also found out from the Coast Guard that there were 6 people on board the vessel that allegedly hit the Clearwater ferry. So let's talk about the crash itself. Emergency calls went out around 8:45 when the crash happened near the Memorial Causeway. By 9 p.m. there were a slew of first responders here by the water, helping the wounded, trying to figure out exactly what happened. They were getting people out of the water. There were other boaters helping people out of the water. And that's when police say a large boat had hit the ferry and then left the scene, literally drove away. Now, we did talk to a passenger who was on board the ferry with his family. I can do it without him. It hit from behind, like it came through where the captain sits. Like he was pinned down with his console. Ended up being knocked over by the yacht that came in. So there was a lot of injuries, you know, and I don't know, a lot of craziness happening all at once. And you can imagine it was mass confusion. I mean, we started out as a great day at the beach and taking the Clearwater ferry in order to avoid traffic and parking at the beach, now on their way home, and then suddenly they're in the middle of this crash. People are in the water. Now, Clearwater police tell us they did account for everyone. So let's talk about the boat that hit the Clearwater ferry. Florida Fish and Wildlife did take over the investigation last night, and they took a boat into custody. They towed it ashore. We have video of that boat. It is a large triple-engine middle console boat. It's what you would normally see like a fishing boat or a recreational boat, and it could go fast with 3 engines on the back of it. Now, we don't know who owns the boat, and we do not yet know who was driving the boat at the time. Like I said, we got word from the Coast Guard that there were 6 people on board that boat, but we don't know if any of those people were injured or sent to the hospital. So there's still a lot of unanswered questions here. Again, the good news this morning, we know there were 2 trauma alerts. We know Orlando Health Bayfront in St. Pete got 2 people at the hospital there, and they are reporting them in stable condition. Sadly, though, 1 person died in all of this, and just making it a tragedy for everyone involved. We're live in Clearwater. Jenny Dean, 10 Tampa Bay.
And you were just watching our coverage from CBS affiliate WTSP on that deadly hit-and-run boat crash in Florida last night. Now to opening statements today in the trial of 3 former Memphis police officers charged in the death of Tyree Nichols. Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith were already convicted of federal charges last year. But now a trial in state court starts today on second-degree murder charges. 2 other officers also have been charged but will not stand trial with their former colleagues. Now, one note from inside the courtroom via our Elise Preston is no black jurors have been selected in this case from a jury pool brought in from Chattanooga. Tyree Nichols died in a hospital 2 years ago after he was beaten by officers following a traffic stop. Take a live look now at Madison, Wisconsin, where severe storms are moving across the upper Midwest today, bringing the chance of hail, damaging winds, flash flooding, even tornadoes. I want to bring in Jessica Birch to talk a little bit more about this storm that's really spans many states.
Exactly. I mean, impacting over 45 million Americans just today alone. Tomorrow it becomes more widespread. Up to 65 million Americans are going to be dealing with some sort of severe weather. So we're going to break that apart right now. It's a pretty active storm, and actually one of the biggest concerns has to do with the tornadic activity that's expected throughout the afternoon and evening hours tonight. The severe weather outlook stretches anywhere from the border of Canada to the border of Mexico and everywhere in between along the plains. But that enhanced look, I'll show you it more in just a bit, really fixates over states like Iowa, Wisconsin, and all the way over into Minnesota too. So we're going to watch severe weather become more widespread into the evening hours tonight. This is just within the next 48 hours. It continues to track its way off into the Ohio Valley, eventually up into the Northeast too. We're expecting heavy showers into the evening hours tonight. We could even see a chance for flash flooding possible too. Let's take a look behind me and kind of time the system out. We head into the evening hours tonight. We could see damaging winds and potential for hail too, with some of these stronger cells that continue to track off over the Great Lakes into the evening hours tonight. Now by Tuesday, notice how it becomes wide stretch from Oklahoma across the Mississippi up all the way into places like Ohio and into the Northeast just by Wednesday. We're not done with the severe weather just yet as we head into the forecasted hours into the midweek forecast. But the severe weather outlook, like I said earlier, that moderate risk really fixates up in the upper Midwest. So we're going to keep a close eye when it comes to tornadic activity, and we're also going to keep a very close eye on large hail that's going to become widespread into the forecast tomorrow. Now that starts to shift a little bit more to Ohio and Pennsylvania into our forecasted hours tomorrow. We're now in that marginal risk and that enhanced risk just along this region, and we're going to continue to monitor that closely too. Damaging winds are possible. I mean, we could see gusts anywhere up to around 50, 60 miles per hour. So maybe it's not tornado activity that we're concerned about in every community, but those winds are definitely going to be whipping as we head into the coming days. Flash flooding is possible too. We could see anywhere up to around 6 inches locally. We'll keep a close eye on that here in the Weather Center. Liz?
Jess, thanks so much. Right now, millions of people are impacted by a power outage across parts of Spain and Portugal. On the Iberian Peninsula, train stations have been plunged into darkness. Airports are at a standstill, and street lights are totally out, leading to major traffic issues, as you can imagine. The Portuguese grid operator said a rare atmospheric issue that affected the Spanish electrical system led to this outage. It also forced the Madrid Open to suspend all tennis matches. American star Coco Gauff's post-match interview was cut off by the blackout.
It feels like you're getting better and better with each match. Is that what it feels like to you as well?
Yeah, definitely. I had avocado toast and what else did I? Oh, fruit. So that was pretty much it. It was an early start. I didn't sleep that well last night, so maybe I just need to not get a lot of sleep.
There you go. Well, this outage started just after noon local time. Power has slowly started coming back out throughout the region, but officials say it could be a week before everything is fully restored. We're going to keep an eye on this story and the impacts across Europe. Well, promises made, promises kept. Donald Trump's claim as he celebrates 100 days in office. But voter support is waning for his actions on the economy and immigration. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Welcome back to CBS News 24/7. President Trump is celebrating his 100 days in office tomorrow. He's going to celebrate that milestone with a rally in Michigan. Now, as promised, he's brought dramatic change to the role of government since returning to the White House with a big focus on the economy. But Americans are concerned over his handling of the economy and inflation. CBS News polls showed Trump's approval rating has dipped since early February. And since March, more people believe that Trump's administration is focused too much on tariffs. And over recent weeks, fewer now believe that Trump has a clear plan for tariffs and trade. And more people are also saying there's not enough focus on lowering prices, even as Trump continues to double down on those tariffs.
The good news is costs are way down, groceries are down, it's all looking good, the tariffs are strong.
So let's bring in Akin Oyedele. He is a deputy editor for Business Insider covering investing. He's the guy to talk to on all this. I want to first get your thoughts on how Trump's first 100 days in office has gone, specifically when it comes to his handling of the economy.
Well, thanks for having me. Well, it's been a turbulent 100 days, to say the least. The economy, by and large, still is in pretty good shape, you could say, and Trump did inherit a pretty strong economy from Biden, but we came into this administration expecting, news about tax cuts and deregulation and all of that fun and happy stuff. But instead, tariffs have dominated the conversation and have really thrown consumer and business confidence into disarray and have really brought down morale, as it were, economically. And so we're talking about a $30 trillion economy, so it's pretty difficult to break things or to turn it around all of a sudden. But based on the news cycle and what we've seen, confidence is really down, and so even though the economy is still in a good place, the vibes are not great.
Mm-hmm. Vibes are not great, that's for sure. And earlier this morning, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent responded to a question from reporters about when we can expect the first trade deal. Let's listen into what he had to say.
I think it could be as early as this week or next week. Vice President Vance was in India last week, and negotiations are coming along quite well with them. As I've mentioned, some of our Asian trading partners have come with very, very good deals. We're evaluating those, and President Trump's going to have the final say on all of them.
Okay, Bessent said just there, the first trade deal could happen any day now in the next couple of weeks. How do you think that's going to impact the markets?
Well, you could see some relief, from the market that really has taken these announcements of tariffs pretty negatively. I think you could see a relief rally. However, we didn't hear the secretary say that conversations with China are productive or anything of that nature. And China is the largest trading partner. So of course India and Japan and Korea matter greatly, but as long as the trade war with China is still a thing, then that really is the biggest elephant in the room, and that's the thing that I think investors would want to see a lot of progress on before we perhaps return to all-time highs in the stock market.
Akin Oyedele, thank you so much for joining us. Meanwhile, Canadians take to the polls today to decide whether to extend the Liberal Party's power or give control to Conservatives. This is an election so far shaped by the country's changing relationship with the U.S. Let's bring in CBS News correspondent and Canadian Chanel Call, who's following the story from our newsroom. Chanel, first, what's at stake here, and why is President Trump having such a strong influence over this election?
Well, if you ask Canadians, a lot of them say that their sovereignty is at stake here. This election has now sharply been focused on who is best suited to take on President Donald Trump. And it does appear by all accounts that President Trump knows that. He posted this on social media this morning, suggesting that he was on the ballot. It says, "Good luck to the great people of Canada." It goes on to suggest that Canada should become, quote, the cherished 51st state. It also reads, quote, "No more artificially drawn line from many years ago. Look at how beautiful this landmass would be. Free access with no border. All positives with no negatives." And, as you mentioned, I am Canadian, grew up in Canada, reported there for almost a decade before I moved to the U.S. So I've been speaking with my family, my friends, my former colleagues there, and they really feel like it's that rhetoric that changed the course of this election. It's a very short election cycle, just 37 days.
Wow.
And so this has emerged as a really central issue. It's also created a very different kind of nationalism in Canada that, frankly, I just have not seen before. It is one that is transcending party lines. It feels like everyone has been touched by this issue and is going to be motivated by this issue when they go to the polls. So I spoke to some Canadians who are living here in the U.S. right now. There are about 800,000 of them, by the way, about what this election really means to them. Listen.
Nervous, excited, kind of on the edge of my seat. Really hoping for a choice in Canada that can redesign the relationship with the U.S. So that's what I'm really hoping for.
All right, and as for who is on the ballot, Canada has 5 political parties, but this now feels like it's become a 2-party race between Liberal candidate Mark Carney and Conservative candidate Pierre Poilievre. Carney is a former central banker, and he, as you know, stepped in to serve as Prime Minister when Justin Trudeau stepped down earlier this year. Poilievre is his Conservative opponent. He sort of touted Trump-like policies earlier in this race and now is choosing to run on this platform of change.
The platform of change, and I'm curious what other issues are on voters' minds during this election. Is this really the top issue, the only issue?
Well, it's been such a short election cycle, and people here in the U.S. will understand we're used to such long cycles where multiple issues can emerge. And by the time the election actually happens, the issue that was really important a few months ago may not be anymore. Because the cycle was only 37 days, it feels like we've been just talking about the trade war for that length of time. And so that's really going to be the thing that motivates people to go to the polls. But before all this happened, and before Carney stepped in and replaced Justin Trudeau earlier this year, Poilievre was running on this idea of change, specifically when it comes to the economy, because that's really the big issue that drove Justin Trudeau out ultimately. And people that don't know this here in the U.S., I want to let them know that the economy has been a big issue there, not just when you think about grocery prices, but housing affordability has been such a key issue on voters' minds in previous elections. This time, though, it does seem sharply focused on this idea of sovereignty and the ongoing trade war.
All right, Chanel Call. Clearly, we both got the orange memo today. We should coordinate tomorrow to see if that works.
Sounds good.
Good to see you. All right, members of Congress are back on Capitol Hill today after a 2-week recess. That said, 2 lawmakers returned a day early to protest the GOP budget plan over the weekend. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and Senator Cory Booker held a sit-in lasting more than 12 hours. Senator Booker warned of a moment of moral urgency. So let's bring in CBS News congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns. She joins us now on Capitol Hill. Caitlin, what's been the reaction from lawmakers to this sit-in?
Hey, great to be with you. Well, you mentioned Cory Booker. Remember, several weeks ago, he held the longest floor speech in the Senate, and that got a lot of attention, particularly from the Democratic Party base, which has been wanting lawmakers up here to do more, or show at least that they are trying to do something, even though they are in the minority here. So it looks like Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, took a page from that playbook. He invited Booker to join him. They essentially sat on the steps of the Capitol, had lots of other guests come through to try to work up opposition to this big budget bill that lawmakers are going to start crafting this week.
Yeah, so, okay, they're going to start crafting it this week. So how fast is it going to take to start moving on this budget bill? Are we going to vote in a couple weeks, maybe?
Well, they want to get this done and onto the president's desk by Memorial Day. So we're looking at just several weeks from now. They've got a lot to do on this bill. Remember, a few weeks ago, the Congress passed just the framework, and that took several weeks, a lot of arm twisting, a lot of iterations of lawmakers going to the White House administration officials coming here to work out details. Now comes the hard part. This is actually writing legislation, writing actual policy on the president's tax cuts, on the president's tax proposals, on a variety variety of different things, and the crux of the Democratic opposition to this is potential cuts to programs like Medicare, Medicaid specifically, because they've got to cut about almost $800 billion from some of these areas. So basically this week we're going to start seeing committees work on getting some legislation together. It could be a few weeks before we actually see some text here, but the big takeaway is that this is a kind of make or break next several weeks for lawmakers up here and for the Trump agenda. They want to get this passed before Memorial Day, before the summer really, where things really start to slow down, and the next year you're in the midterms. They're doing this by a process called reconciliation, which means that they only need a thin majority to support it, so they can get away with not having Democratic support, really. But still, as we know, it's still difficult to get all the Republicans around the same ideas.
Sure. All right, Caitlin Huey-Burns, thanks so much. You're watching CBS News 24/7. Well, Kim Kardashian said she thought she'd be killed when a group of thieves broke into her Paris hotel room and held her at gunpoint in 2016. She was tied up, gagged, and millions of dollars worth of jewelry was stolen from her. Now, almost 9 years later, a group of suspects are going on trial in Paris. 10 people on trial for kidnapping and robbery charges. The French press have dubbed them the granddad robbers because the main defendants are older and have been bank robbers with long criminal records. And one of those suspects, 71-year-old Younes Abbas. Now, he admitted to participating in the robbery and has written a book about the incident. Abbas says he acted out as a lookout during the heist and plans to take responsibility for his role. Now, Kim Kardashian's attorney says she will testify in person during this trial, which is expected to run through May 23rd. This week marks 50 years since the fall of Saigon. Coming up in our Eye in America, I'm going to introduce you to some 4 brave women who played a crucial role in saving lives that day. You're watching CBS News 24/7. It is our Eye on America, CBS News, hearing your stories in your communities. We're about to mark 50 years since the fall of Saigon, the capturing of South Vietnam's capital by North Vietnam communists, and the end of our involvement in this. But you're about to see 4 California flight attendants who became an integral part of that story. North of San Francisco, overlooking Tamales Bay, these women gathered to remember.
And we shared an adventure together that we'll never forget.
Their names, Sue, Pamela, Laura Lee, and Cha. It was April of 1975. They were all stewardesses for Pan Am Airways, and they all volunteered for an extremely dangerous mission.
There wasn't any question we were going to go in and do what we could that could help.
Thousands of people were roaming Da Nang airfield.
6 days before the fall of Saigon, the situation was chaotic. The FAA banned all commercial flights in and out of Vietnam. But Pan Am got special permission for one final journey.
In the middle of the night, Pan Ops called me and asked me if I would volunteer to go in to Saigon on a rescue mission. And I said yes.
The goal? To evacuate Pan Am's Vietnamese employees and families.
They were working for an American company. I believe their lives would have all been in danger if they'd stayed.
The crew was willing to cram even more on board, including Cha's 4 teenage sisters.
My sisters, of course, is so scared.
On the flight, extra uniforms and wigs. The plan? To dress each sister as a Pan Am stewardess. Then, one by one, the disguised teens drove out to the plane, passing soldiers armed with machine guns.
Without my help, I don't think they had the way of getting out of the country.
They boarded nearly 100 more passengers than the plane could seat.
It was packed, every inch.
When the jumbo jet took off,
there was gunfire that we could hear. We knew that the airport was surrounded. We knew that. What I recall was the deafening silence.
People were crying. We were crying. We were sad that they had to leave that way.
All credit their pilot, the late Captain Bob Berg, as being the real hero.
He told us when we got on the ground that he would not leave anyone behind, that he would turn the red flashing light on, and that meant get back to the airplane as quickly as possible.
Such a treasure, and such a man filled with humility and bravery and courage.
Qualities shared by these women today and 50 years ago on a flight to freedom.
Amazing women there. Well, a live look at Minneapolis, where severe storms are moving across the upper Midwest today, bringing the chance of hail, damaging winds, flash flooding, and even tornadoes to some areas. Jess, where's the storm right now?
The storm's starting to actually gain some strength. It's going to impact over 45 million Americans today, widespread from Texas all the way up into areas like Minnesota. And as we head into the next couple days, that severe weather becomes more widespread, eventually impacting 65 million Americans as early as tomorrow for our Tuesday forecast. That red color you see over states like Minnesota and Iowa and all the way over into western portions of Wisconsin, that's that enhanced risk right now for severe weather. But it's so widespread throughout the plains, up into the Ohio Valley, and eventually off into the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic as we head into the next 48 hours. So let's take a look behind me. I want to time the storm out for you and gear you up for what's to come. That atmospheric moisture becomes widespread throughout the south into the coming days. And this is going to impact everyone all the way up into areas like Ohio, off into Missouri, and right back down into Arkansas, too. Tornado activity is possible with these storms. We're going to see heavy amounts of winds and gusty conditions lasting into the evening hours tonight. We wake up tomorrow morning to similar conditions as heat starts to rise and the atmosphere is unstable above us. We're going to continue to watch these storms gain strength into the evening hours each day from Tuesday into Wednesday. So as we gear up for what's to come, like we just saw on the map below me, that moderate risk actually is highlighted just in that Tri-Valley area or that tri-state area up near Madison, Wisconsin. But then we head into the next couple days, this becomes more widespread. So we could see tornado activity. We could see severe weather tomorrow all the way up into areas like Maine, stretched all the way back down into Texas. We're going to keep a very close eye on the Ohio Valley as we head into our forecast tomorrow. Back to you.
Jess, thanks so much. Almost 30 years after leaving D.C. to play in Landover, Maryland, the Washington Commanders will now return to their roots after reaching a $3 billion stadium deal with the city. The site is where RFK Stadium still stands, and it was the team's home between 1961 and 1996. City officials and the team staff talked about the plans today, including how it will help the community grow.
We will be able to deliver thousands of homes here. It will deliver a world-class, community-focused sportsplex for our kids. It will create park space and build out riverfront and trails. It's about creating jobs for D.C. residents and revenue that will support what all of our city needs, city services that have made us a growing city.
Quarterback Shedeur Sanders got called up by the Browns in this year's NFL draft, but he didn't just pick up the phone for the Browns. He also got a prank call from someone pretending to be an NFL general manager for another team. Now that person, the son of the Falcons defensive coordinator, is apologizing for carrying out this cruel stunt. Jerica Duncan breaks it all down in our TikTok tube.
There is nothing funny about what happened to Shedeur Sanders. A lot has been said about the draft pick and why he wasn't picked before, but there's a reason why he may have thought he was going a lot earlier than the 5th round. Apparently, today we learned that he got a prank phone call from the son of a defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons. So the Falcons released a statement. I'm going to read it to you verbatim. Earlier in the week, Jax Ulbrich, the 21-year-old son of defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, unintentionally came across the draft contact phone number of Shedeur Sanders off an open iPad while visiting his parents' home and wrote the number down to later conduct a prank call. Jeff Ulbrich was unaware of the data exposure or any facets of the prank and was made aware of the above only after the fact. So open iPad after visiting his parents' house. Either way, the Atlanta Falcons said they do not condone this type of behavior. Jax Ulbrich went on to apologize on social media, saying, "I made a tremendous mistake. Shador, what I did was completely inexcusable, embarrassing, and shameful." Meanwhile, Shador Sanders seems to be living the good life. His social media shows him posted up with his family saying football brings people together. He also said that he is grateful for the opportunity to go to the Cleveland Browns. As someone who lived in Cleveland, go Browns. It looks like Shador Sanders is moving forward with his life and is looking to thrive, and we wish him the best.
Yeah, good to see him smiling. Thank you so much, Jerika. Well, our social media team has so much great content like that on our TikTok and Instagram pages, so just follow us at the handle CBS News. Pretty simple there. Whoa, that speedboat on Arizona's Lake Havasu was going almost 200 miles an hour when it, you saw there, went airborne, flipping and spinning in the air and then crash landing during a weekend competition. The two racers seen in this cockpit video are thankfully okay. They were trying to break a speed record when they crashed. I'd be curious to see if they actually broke that speed record. I bet they did. Well, still ahead here on 24/7, some new lawn decorations at the White House, how they are being used to tout President Trump's first 100 days in office. Stay with us right here.